All right, so Preston, let's move on to number 57. And
Jeez,
number
57.
50,
How many more? What are we getting to? Like 350? What did we go until?
maybe we'll see what happens.
Okay.
We're going to actually 65.
So, okay. Oh, that's not far at all.
Mm-hmm.
57 to 65. Just eight more? Okay.
Yep.
All
Mm-hmm.
right.
So 57, the Iron Bank, betting on Cersei winning the war. Cersei loses, so what does the Iron Bank do to get their money back? I think this is kind of a weird confusion that many people, including myself, had during that season 7 scene. So to my understanding is that the money that the Lannisters took from Highgarden made it back to King's Landing, and the actual train that was going from Highgarden, the train, the cart, you know what I'm talking about, the
Yeah,
supplies,
yeah, yeah.
those were grain. That Dany attacks, that was grain. To my understanding, the Iron Bank already got their money, and I think the money that was left over after Cersei paid back the debt was used to buy the Golden Company. I don't think the Iron Bank gave them a loan. I saw this. I went back and I saw the scene before we started recording. I don't think the Iron Bank gave them the loan to buy the Golden Company.
I thought this is just what I remember. I thought she paid back the previous debt and then took out a new loan to buy the Golden Company.
See,
Like
I saw the scene with her just now. I saw the scene with her and what's the guy's name? Tycho.
Tycho Nestoris.
Right. I saw the scene with him, and he doesn't say that he's willing to help her once he gets the money, but he never says he's going to loan her more cash to get the Golden Company. He just basically says, "By the way, the Golden Company has helped us in the past," and she's like, "Yeah, I'll think about like employing them."
Huh. I mean, maybe. I don't think it's too much of a thing in the end. I mean, it's just something that Bran would come in and then have to pay off. Like, okay. On the list of things that are messed up with the world that are in crisis, like yeah, the paying back of the loan to take out the golden take off the take the Golden Company. Plus, she might have promised to pay the Golden Company. She might have taken out the loan, promised to pay the Golden Company, and then never actually paid an invoice. That never actually paid them. They all got killed, so it doesn't matter. Though whatever money she has, the castle fell upon on top of her. There's a lot more money to be spent like rebuilding King's Landing and things like that. That's going to be a bigger loan to take out from the Iron Bank. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's too much to worry about. I think it's a bigger loan to repair the entire city that got destroyed than worry about the money to pay the money to pay the Golden Company. Yeah, I mean it's going to be tough. I mean, luckily spring is right around the corner, and they're and really winter never came. So
Winter did come. It just happened for a couple of days or maybe a couple of weeks or something.
Right. I mean, there was like a week of snow in King's Landing at most. So it's the equivalent. I mean, that means Dorne was fine. It was still growing crops. So everything, Old Town, perfectly fine. So they just have to get a lot of money to rebuild and maybe take out another loan with the Iron Bank. They'll be fine.
They'll be fine.
They'll be fine.
Number 58, Tyrion giving Jon and Dany a weird and ominous look when Jon goes into her room at the end of season 7. This seemed to set up some conflict for them in season 8, but nothing ever comes of it. Yeah, this is something everybody pointed out, that Tyrion is just giving them a weird stare, and come season 8, he's just cool with it.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, they're sitting around talking about having them be married, right? The only ominous look of oh man, this is going to be trouble would be after Jon's birthright is discovered. Before that, there's no trouble at all, right? At the beginning of the season, they're all completely tickled pink that Jon and Dany, the king of the north and the queen of the of the seven kingdoms would get married and there would be peace. They're tickled pink about that idea, and Tyrion giving an ominous look on the boat. I I guess we just have to accept it's from him being in love with Dany, and then he kind of gets over it.
I see you keep making this like assumption that he's in love with her. I don't think he's in love with her. I think he loves her like how you love your brother. You're not in love with your brother, but you love your brother. I think he's in love with the idea of what she was or what she could have been.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little ambiguous because he does say, like, oh, I loved her. And then he says, not as thoroughly or as successfully as you. Um, and, obviously if that, it's not that he might not be conflating the different types of love, but if he is in that statement, he's doing that. I think some people took that line of Tyrion admitting that he was actually in love with Dany as well. But I don't know. It's an ambiguous line, so who knows?
Oh, and before we move on, so the Iron Bank is that a drop plot line? I think it's just resolved.
I would say it was fairly resolved. I mean, the Iron Bank in general is one of those plot lines that I'm really surprised they didn't drop. Like they kept bringing it up every season, and then they finally did something with it, and she paid the loan back, and then got the Golden Company, and then the Golden Company was killed. Do they have to pay back that loan? Well, sure, maybe if there wasn't an additional loan, as you said, but I think it's just I wouldn't say resolved. It's just I don't think it's like really worth mentioning. Paying back Cersei's final loan if it exists. You didn't think it existed. I thought maybe it did, but we'll see. But I thought it was. See, I remember making fun of the season and being like, "This is really weird that, they have her pay back a loan and then immediately take out the loan again. Like, why were they in such a rush to get the money, like paid if they're just going to loan it out again? Like, they'd be back at the same number, But I don't know."
And Tyrion giving Dany and Jon that unapproving look at the end of season 7, drop plot or
yeah, I do think it's really weird. I guess it's dropped. Yeah, I mean, we would have to assume that somehow Tyrion was in love with Dany and then got over it. But again, like there's nothing in the plot that or show that shows him getting over it or being fine with that. So yeah, I'd definitely say it's a drop plot. Like he gave an ominous look, like this is going to be trouble. I believe it's going to be trouble, and then the next season he's completely fine with it. He's actually happy about it.
well, it would have made more sense if Tyrion actually found out about Jon's true parentage before he gave them that ominous look.
Yeah.
That would have made more sense because Bran and Sam find out about it around the season 7 finale. If Tyrion was there, that would have made more sense.
Yeah, it's true.
59. Benjen Stark is a drop plot. An incredibly interesting character that is undead, yet on the side of the living, but is only there briefly to save Bran and Jon, and that's it. So I wouldn't say Benjen is a drop plot per se, but I would argue that his conclusion was very unsatisfying.
Yeah, I mean, everybody kind of says that it was shoehorned in. Like, they did resolve it, but it's just like, really? Like, you bring Jon back only to have Benjen come out and save him at the last minute to have Benjen killed. It was completely shoehorned in. It wasn't a very fitting resolution. Like, Jon never gets to talk to his uncle after searching for him for years. You know, Bran gets to talk to him, even though that Bran wasn't the one that was obsessed with finding him. You know, so yeah, I would say it's just a weird shoehorned in, too quick resolution for Benjen. We never really find out the deal with him and, you know, what his powers were, or his relationship with the children of the forest and the three-eyed raven or any of that. But, you know, just shows up to immediately get killed.
Yeah, that was... once again, not a drop plot. It's concluded. He comes back, just briefly.
Concluded poorly, you know.
Very, yeah. Just like the Blackfish. Concluded very poorly. Number 60, The Horn of Winter. It's briefly shown in the show, but it's more relevant in the books than it is in the show, and there is no point in even bringing it to the show if nothing ever comes of it. So here's where I'll defend the show on this point. there's a point in time where the show is allowed to show us or give us Easter eggs from the book, and this is really what it is. It's that season 2 scene where uh Gren and Sam find the dragon glass daggers and the horn
Yeah.
at the Fist of the First Men.
Yeah, it's definitely more of an Easter egg because what he does is he takes the horn and he tips it over, and what slides out of it is dragon glass. And the dragon glass is relevant to the plot.
And if I remember correctly, the Horn of Winter in the books that Mance says he found is this like gigantic, huge thing.
Yeah, so I mean, we've got two supposed horns of winter, right? You've got the horn that Mance finds in a giant's grave, and that he's using as a legend to unite the wildlings together, to convince them to fight against the Night's Watch, and he later uses it to bluff against the Night's Watch, claiming that, I can totally like knock down your wall. So he's got these, he has this like power resides where people think it resides, so he invents this like fake item, and to bind people, and then it turns out it was nothing, and Melisandre burns it in the end. And then you've got Sam like finding a horn, or Ghost finds the horn, and eventually Jon gives the horn to Sam. So that horn, other fans think it might be the Horn of Winter.
And that's what I'm going to assume it was, a nice little Easter egg the showrunners put in there for like book fans. We've seen instances of this before, mostly with characters. One that comes to mind off the top of my head is Lothar Brune gets a brief mention in the beginning of season 2, or Lem Lemoncloak in season 6, the Brotherhood members that come to Septon Ray's village and burn it down. So we do get Easter eggs from time to time here and there, and yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would say as well. Just the show never built it up. The show never built up the Horn of Winter.
Number 61, Oberyn's other children. He mentions them, but they never show up. Would have been cool if the new Prince of Dorne was Oberyn's son. I agree on how it would have been cool to see one of Oberyn's children show up at the Great Council meeting in Season 8, but this really does feel like a throwaway line, especially since Sam's Citadel plotline was, like, highly condensed into a few episodes of him doing nothing. Orville and, like... Don't you have, like, a theory that, like, in Winds of Winter, like, Sam's plotline will involve, like, the impending Ironborn invasion, mysterious faceless men assassins, and like Sorella Sand, and the
Brave Companions. Yeah.
The Brave Companions, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know how he's going to resolve it all, but there's a lot of stuff going on in Old Town all at once. Considering faceless men, Brave Companions, Sand Snakes, Euron, Maester conspiracies. It's a lot. It's a lot. So we'll see.
So Sam's plot was like condensed, but like Oberyn mentioning he had a bunch of daughters, I don't think that's a drop plot line. I thought that was just a throwaway line to just build up his character, that he's such a
philanderer or something. Yeah, but I mean, the scene where he does it, he's using it to connect with Cersei, and he meant about parenthood, and so he mentions that he has eight daughters. I mean, it's a tiny little bit of a dropped plot, because where are they when Dorne is supposed to be ruled, right? Like, aren't they related to the Martell family? Of course, we don't know who the Prince of Dorne is, so maybe it's Doran's cousin, and so they would come before 5 bastard Sand Snake girls. So maybe. Yeah, I mean, it would be nice if they were mentioned again, kind of like it would be nice if they mentioned the Tyrell cousins that should be running House Tyrell after that Marjorie mentions, but we never hear.
You and these cousins, man. You and these
cousins.
You love the Tyrell cousins, the Jeequee. You love all these characters.
Where's Jeequee? Oh, Dany's Blood Riders that just disappeared. Oh man, her first Blood Riders. She gets her later Blood Riders, but first Blood Riders just kind of disappear. Once she makes it to Marine.
Oh, that you could. They were there in season 5, guarding her at the great fighting pits, but I don't remember seeing them post season 5. So you can argue they just fell in with the other Dothraki.
Yeah, I mean, probably, but like I say, it was really silly that they sent off Jorah and Dario on their own into the Dothraki Sea to find Dany without Dothraki. Like, oh, you just know like somebody that might be good at tracking in the in the Dothraki Sea, who knows how to get to Vastoth Rock. Ugh, oh well. Oh well.
But Oberyn's other children, I disagree with you. I don't think it's a drama plot. I just think it's just, once again, maybe an Easter egg. I don't feel like there was enough of it to be a plot. But you do.
I mean,
you
obviously,
do make a good point.
as a book fans, we think of Oberyn's other children as being very relevant. But were they ever built up in the show? They had one line. They're bastards. They wouldn't necessarily inherit. So maybe it's just that we're so conditioned to the book because the 5 other sand snakes are so important in the book, especially Sorella Sand and Elia. But we'll yeah. I mean, I'll say it's not much. It's technically a drop plot. I'll give it, but it's a really small one. There's the compromise.
Number 62, Pycelle Faking His Age. He goes on to mention the deleted scene in Season 3 between Tywin and Pycelle, where Pycelle explains to the audience why he puts on the performance. I agree with this, but at the same time I don't. It's not really a dropped or forgotten plot because it never really had any significance, which is why Dave and Dan kind of cut out that deleted scene from Season 3. But it is important for that Season 3 deleted scene to be in there because it references his true allegiance to House Lannister.
Yeah, I mean, that's a neat scene. It is kind of redundant because I think there's a scene where Pycelle acts more nimble around a sex worker. So it is canon even without the deleted scene that Pycelle is faking his feebleness. Is it that important? Well, I guess not. I mean, I don't know if we learned more of it, it would have made a difference. Those kids would still have stabbed Pycelle. And that would have been the end of it.
If anything, that deleted scene was important because, and I think Varys references this in one of the Blu-rays, Histories and Lores, and he says how Pycelle convinced the Man King to open the gates to Tywin during the last days of Robert's rebellion. So that scene is important, but not to show that Pycelle is putting on an act, but because his allegiance was always to the Lannisters and not to the crown.
Yeah. Now the deleted scene also is supposed to. It has Tywin killing a fish, which is supposed to mirror him killing a stag in a previous scene, where he's stripping a stag. So it's supposed to be like, oh, he defeated the Baratheons and now he's defeating the Tullys. So it's like, that kind of thing. So it's, but yeah, I mean, it's a small thing. I guess it was just something to make Pycelle more interesting, that he's not as dumb as he lets on, but he never uses that knowledge to do anything. I guess I wish Pycelle had a bigger role and acted and used that intelligence. I mean, in the book, they never really introduce him being smarter than he is. I mean, Pycelle's not dumb, but you never think like, oh, Pycelle's an idiot. No, actually, he's super clever. Like, no, I mean, Pycelle is just, he's a smart guy. He's just not a super smart guy, and it's not, there's no twist. So I guess it is a little weird that they introduced this idea that he's faking, and then it never plays any role.
Yeah, that's why I'm in between.
Do you think the deleted scene is closure enough? Like, it's important that he's faking because it tells us about his like Lannister allegiances.
The reason he's faking, as told by him in the deleted scene, is because he doesn't want to appear to be a threat. He doesn't want to appear to be the tallest or the brightest flower. He just wants to remain in the garden. And he feels as though acting like a feeble old man keeps him around. People see him as less of a threat and less like a person that should be taken out because, politics and yeah.
It's true, but he didn't fool Varys and in the book and Qyburn in the show. I guess they thought he was worth taking out.
63. The Hound wanted to go to Essos and fight as a sellsword when Arya asks him what he plans to do. And it doesn't make much sense for him to go and join the Brotherhood either in Season 6 versus his goal to go to Essos. I actually don't remember the Hound ever saying this, nor which season it's in, but I feel as though this was more of a throwaway line because he later changes his mind, I think, and tries to ransom off Arya to her family a few times. Maybe he was just trying to get the goal to go to Essos, but I don't remember this being an active goal of his.
Yeah, it must be a throwaway. I mean, it must be a throwaway. There's because if you remember, like, so season like they split a Storm of Swords up into seasons 3 and 4, but the Red Wedding happens at the end of season 3. So now you've got an entire season to fill of Arya and the Hound just wandering around doing nothing, which
So boring.
which is not not that much happens. I'm trying to think of like post Red Wedding Storm of Swords. Like Arya goes to a village and then they live there for a couple weeks, and then the villagers decide that they need to leave, and then they go to the inn at the crossroads. And that's the end of that. That's the end of the Arya story in A Storm of Swords. So you had too much time and not enough plot. So I guess they they give him a random conversation or something.
64. Illyrio Mopatis is never seen again after the first few episodes in season 1, even when they're at his house in season 5. Yes, this is
huge drop plot.
he's just another victim, in my opinion, of placing the budget elsewhere. Characters that appear should have reappeared in later seasons, like Great John Umber and Ungai, are also left out, likely due to budget restraints. I feel like Great John Umber was fairly prominent in season 1. Like he appears quite a few times.
Yeah, absolutely. They make him into a much bigger role than he has in the book. I mean, all of those lines exist, but when you all the lines exist that exist in the show, but when you delete everybody else, it makes Great John Umber look like he's this huge guy, this huge role. And then he just disappears, dies off screen.
Well, in the season 1, he is the one that calls for Robb being the king of the North. He's the first one to unsheath his sword and pledge to Robb as king of the North. So you would think that he would appear a bit more than he did. And quite frankly, it's weird that Tycho, what's his last name? Nestoris?
Tycho Nestoris?
Nestoris, thank you, I'm sorry. It's weird that Tycho Nestoris has a bigger presence in the show than Great John Umber, who is one of the major lords in the North. The House Umber is later play somewhat of a more bigger role when we see them in season 6 going up against Jon and his forces. So, if anything, I would like to have seen him die in season 3 during the Red Wedding, if anything.
I mean, that short-haired servant of Cersei has a bigger role than Great John Umber. I mean, a lot of people have a greater role than Great John Umber. Roz.
Greater role or more screen time?
More screen time, I mean, yeah, that Great John Umber is very important in season 1, and then, he's never heard from again. Killed off screen. So
Killed off screen. But yes, Illyrio Mopatis, I would consider that dropped. I would like to have seen him again.
Yeah, I mean, it's too bad that they couldn't get that actor for honestly one goddamn scene when Tyrion shows up at his mansion, or something, or just a throwaway line of Illyrio no longer speaks to me because of Dany's destruction of the slave trade. Just one line, and it would have been fine.
He actually appears 3 times in season 1. The first time is obviously episode 1 when he introduces Dany to Khal Drogo. The second time, also in season 1 during the wedding to Dany and Khal Drogo, where he gives her the eggs. And the third time is in the not the dungeons where they keep the bones of the dragons.
Skulls, yeah.
Yeah, that was him meeting up with Varys, and they discussed the wolf and the lion going to war soon.
Yeah.
He's fairly important to Varys' plans, which it seemed like Varys had grand plans back in season 1 during those meetings.
Back when there was an Aegon cause.
Yeah. Back when we were sure that George might have released the 6th book before they got to that point, and nope. And last but not least, 65, Jon and Ghost's relationship is just all over the place. I don't feel like this is a drawn plot. I just feel as though this is kind of I don't want to say lazy writing, but it is weird, like because there are moments where John and Ghost are super close, and the moments where he just doesn't really care about Ghost that much.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, it was budgeting or something. You know, they didn't want to have a dire wolf around. But the fact that Ghost, who has this huge connection with John, especially after he dies, and like saves his life so many times, and then all of a sudden like vanishes from the story, and then we get a few seconds of him at the battle, and then you know he pets him a few times, and that's pretty much it. I mean, that he had no goodbye, but of course he had no goodbye because we knew he was going to be back. But he should have had a goodbye.
Yeah, it's weird. A lot of the direwolves, as time goes on, really kind of play more of a background role than they should have. I think the only direwolf that really took precedence was Rob's direwolf, who went with him into battle constantly, though we never see it,
Yeah.
but we're told that happens. And Rob uses Grey Wind quite a few times, actually. One time to threaten Jaime. Um, John uses Ghost a couple of times too, but you would think the Starks would be a bit more closer to their wolves than that.
Right. I mean, obviously, we don't get the book John either, who can actually, skin change him and has a telepathic connection to him. We they only explore that with Bran. So, and Summer. I mean, I guess if there's a wolf that was done dirty, it's Summer. you know.
Doesn't Summer get killed? Right? What happened to Summer again in season 6? Doesn't Summer get killed?
She jumps out like when the White Walkers are attacking the Three-Eyed Raven's cave. He jumps out for a second, and then he's surrounded by undead, and then we assume that she's ripped apart.
Oh yeah, that's right. Wow, that wolf was done dirty. Holy
Yeah.
fuck. Jesus, but yes, that is all we have for right now, unless Supercuts decides to make another video. I do enjoy discussing these, and I hope I wasn't ripping on his choices too much. But I definitely check out his channel. Very entertaining guy. Preston, thank you so much for joining me on these.
Anytime.
Preston, when is Winds of Winter coming out? Because I know they put out a Winds of Winter website. What's going on with that?
I have a Winds of Winter website, but I mean Winds of Winter.
Preston, I was doing a thing. Come on, I was doing a thing.
Yeah. No, I have windsofwinter.com, but we'll keep mentioning it. I need to start editing it, doing something with it. It's just kind of sitting there. But
honestly, what you have here so far is actually pretty cool. You need to update the Mercy one.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Yeah, but I guess it's supposedly July we're gonna get an announcement, but I doubt it. I really doubt it.
Really, July? That seems so far away. But then again, time moves by so quickly. Didn't he say he was supposed to have it at like New Zealand Con or something like that?
Right, which is the end of July.
Oh.
Right.
Oh.
So his statement was like, "Oh, I'm totally gonna have it by the time I go to New Zealand Con, and if I don't, you have every right to like kidnap me and like make me, write."
He'll have it in his hands at New Zealand
Yeah.
Con.
Yeah.
He needs to like hire some good security because I feel like people would rush the stage and try to steal it from him.
Now, granted, even if he had it, it would still need to be edited and printed and things like that, and that would take 6 months or more. So we'd still have a lot of time. But I don't know. Will he have it in his hands by the end of July? I wouldn't bet on it.
With how much Game of Thrones leaked during its production, like story points and stuff like that, it would kind of annoy me if like George finished the book and then gave it to his editor, and one of his editors like told certain piece of information to someone they knew, and that person leaked it on like the Reddit forums and stuff, because I'm really kind of getting sick of the leaks, and I really don't want this book, any details of it whatsoever, to be leaked. Even though he did release some chapters here and there, that's fine, but I want to like kind of go in completely in the dark, and and not know what's about to happen because some dipshit decides he wants 5 minutes of fame on Reddit and leaks it on there.
Yeah, I don't think things will be leaked. I mean, one thing is like there's many fewer people involved with publishing a book than producing a show. I mean, you're going to have one editor, maybe two, who's going to read that book, read that manuscript and make corrections. And then after that, it's just, you've got some people that got to send it to the printer. And then at that point, maybe at the printer, like somebody is might leak it. But by then, like you're so close to the publishing date that it's not that big a deal. I mean, do you remember if spoilers for Harry Potter like it came out when it was getting published?
I feel as though the internet wasn't there yet in regards to spoilers when it came to stuff like that. If they were, it would have been for shows and movies, not books.
Yeah.
And I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for saying this, but I feel as though Game of Thrones is more popular right now than Harry Potter is. I think at its height, Thrones was way more popular than Harry Potter was at its own height, but I also think Potter has made more money since it can be marketed towards kids, whereas Thrones is usually aimed at a more of an adult audience. Because I feel like Harry Potter's popularity really hinges on whether or not new movies or books are coming out, whereas Thrones has managed to retain its popularity despite it not releasing anything new right now. Though I'm sure someone is going to want to debate that in the comment section, which by all means, please do.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that if you're going just books, Harry Potter probably sold more books and was more popular. If you're going both media, like all media, multimedia, then you're including the shows and the movies, then I would say the Game of Thrones is more popular,
More popular, but which made more money? I think Harry Potter made more money, but because of the success of Game of Thrones, even with the lackluster last 2 seasons, I feel as though this book would probably be one of the most pre-ordered books or one of the most bought books ever. Maybe not more than the Bible, but
I mean, I'm just hoping that we're gonna crack that book and the plot is just gonna be completely and utterly different. Like it's just like, what? Jon stays dead the entire time?
the whole book is him dead? Oh my god, no way.
Right, yeah. Like, oh my god. Like that would be pretty incredible, right? That no, Jon really died. Like mind blown. Completely different story, That's all he has to do. Keep Jon
That would
dead.
actually be so insane, like, because the show really banked on Jon Snow being that bathroom sign that you said. But then who takes the lead role in the North? Like, who's that guy? Who's the bathroom sign? I mean, the books don't really have a need for the bathroom sign, but
Asha Greyjoy. It doesn't matter,
Really?
Yeah, I mean, you figure something out. Or like,
watch it be Rickon.
well, no, or like it'd be Rickon and like Asha ends up being like his main advisor, or like Asha
Or
becomes
Davos.
Stannis. Yeah, or like Asha becomes Stannis' advisor, or Davos figures out something. Davos is now advising Rickon. Like something, like there's a million, and I would like, look, if I were writing the book, I would keep Jon in the direwolf, and I would have like a direwolf chapter. Like I'd keep Jon dead the whole book, and I'd have the epilogue be Ghost, like north of
Damn,
the
bro,
wall.
that's a little dangerous. I don't know how people would react to that. That's a little dangerous.
Well, I mean, George R.R. Martin likes to live dangerously in his writing. But that if I were writing the book, that would be the creative choice I would make. I would keep Jon dead the whole book. And so you're reading the whole book going, oh my God, where's Jon? And then in the epilogue I would have be Ghost, like north of the wall, like doing something, And you realize that Jon's spirit is still alive. Like, which is roughly what he did in A Storm of Swords, right? Like you think Catelyn's dead, and then in the epilogue, she's alive.
Yeah, but okay, so keeping Jon dead the entire Winds of Winter, and then we have Dream of Spring, which is the final book, or so he says.
Yeah.
And then let's say he's resurrected in Dream of Spring. He has a lot of stuff to do. He has a lot to do.
I don't even need him resurrected. I have him follow Bran. That's fine. But So, I would have, if I were structuring the books, I mean, I've thought a lot about how I would structure the books. But, if I were doing it, I would have the next book would be Dany making her way and landing in Westeros at the end of the book. We resolve our northern plots and everything at that point too. And then A Dream of Spring would be mostly her battle with Aegon. And I would actually have like the other invasion kind of like as the last third or last quarter of the book. Like because I don't think a zombie invasion where everybody dies is very interesting. So you could just keep, that could be faster kind of pace. But
I've always found it super weird that the White Walkers in the books don't have as big of a presence as they do in the show, because they're huge motivation for the wildlings wanting to come down south, and they barely appear. They have some appearances here and there, of course, but as compared to the show, where the books and the show were at the same time, not as much.
Yeah, like if it weren't for the fact that this is a book, and you kind of know certain things about a story, like, a man and a woman are introduced. I bet they're going to get together. Like, if it weren't a story, we don't really have any evidence that the others want to go south of the wall and invade, right? Like, there's nothing in the book that's actually introduced that idea. But because it's a story, we kind of know that, okay, they're going to invade south at some point. But there hasn't been anything in the book that says they want to do that.
And I actually wanted to ask you about this. So in the show, Daenerys eventually becomes the Mad Queen, and how she comes out of nowhere with this plan to bring peace and order to the world.
Yeah. Break the wheel, all that.
And we never really got any inkling of these plans of hers before this one scene in season 8.
Oh, well, we have her sit down with Tyrion. She first brings up breaking the wheel.
Yeah, but when she brings up breaking the wheel, it just sounds like she's going to correct the injustices that the wheel produces. She doesn't say she's going to bring order and justice to, lands beyond Westeros. But do you think what truly makes her go insane will be what they do to her as a prisoner? Because when we leave her in the 5th book, they find her, and the Dothraki aren't really known for their excellent treatment of prisoners, if they do take any. So it is possible the things she experiences or goes through while prisoner of the Dothraki is what truly breaks her mind. And not to mention, it would also parallel what happened to her father when the Mad King was in prison in Duskendale for a year or something. So it would make sense on that level as well.
Huh.
Because in the show, when she's captured by the Dothraki, they don't touch her. They don't rape her or brutalize her or nothing.
Right.
But in the books are much different. And do you think the Dothraki will do something to her?
Yeah, but she's still a member of the Dosh Khaleen. So it would go against, this is his out, right? It would go against their beliefs to do something to a Dosh Khaleen. So and in the books, the Dosh Khaleen apparently have real power, unlike in the show where they're immediately said to be nothing. So it's hard to say where they're going with it.
Well, Dany's mind break and her wanting justice in the world has to come from something. If anything, she'll probably be traveling with the Dothraki as their prisoner to bring her to Vast Dothrak. And along the way, she'll probably witness the Dothraki raping and pillaging, and maybe that's where her idea comes from about bringing justice and peace and prosperity into the world in the books. Yeah. Maybe that's what will happen, because it's kind of a leap.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say. The Mad Queen's theory has been around for a while, and then it somehow happened in the show. So maybe, I don't know. They'll have to come up with something. I don't know if it's going to be her being brutalized versus just her naturally coming to this. I mean, she did kill all those slavers in Astapor, and above the age of 12. So.
And I also wonder, because the Dothraki charging into the White Walkers, that was such a huge death sentence to them. And I always wonder, did Dany ever harbor hatred against the Dothraki? Did she ever just see them as tools of war and that was it? She had no compassion towards them? If anything, she'll probably, what she'll go through in Winds of Winter in Dothraki captivity will probably change her mind or make her hate the Dothraki just seeing them and how
Yeah.
they truly are.
There's a few things that happened in season 8 that just smelled like George R. R. Martin. I mean, I don't think D&D like implemented them well, but they just smelled like George R. R. Martin. Like Bran being king at the end, like kind of something that's been predicted before. But that's one thing. Tyrion's speech about like stories, like which as stupid as it was, it like definitely felt like George R. R. Martin. Sam talking about true death being when everyone forgets you and all of that and what the Night King wants, that felt like George R. R. Martin. A white dragon, like a dead dragon, felt like George R. R. Martin. Like would D&D really have the balls to be like, yeah, let's do an undead dragon? Like, you think that's their idea, So the Mad Queen is another one. Like, I guess, it's happening. It just doesn't seem like something that D&D would pull the trigger over, like they sat there and like heard the plot points and were like, okay, we gotta do this plot point, So I guess we'll see if they come or not. I mean, George R. R. Martin can of course change his mind and do whatever he wants. Keep Jon dead.
You really want Jon to stay dead?
Oh, it would just be a much better story.
Oh, Jesus.
It's not that I like Jon. It's just that it would be more interesting to have Jon dead. There's so many more interesting characters to focus on up there, and I think Jon takes the oxygen out of the room. Like, I'd rather see the story. I'd rather follow Davos, Melisandre, Asha, and Theon. Like they're in the north. Like, I'd rather follow them than follow Jon.
My idea, my dream for season 6 onwards was
your
to
dream
have
for
kept
spring.
My dream for season 6 onwards, what I would have done was kept Jon dead for a good chunk of the season and have Sansa kind of take over. Have her be the negotiator. Have her be, the kingmaker. Have her just maneuver around chess pieces on the board like Littlefinger taught her, or how she learned from Cersei to manipulate and just, maneuver around people, going to each northern house and just convincing them to rise against the Boltons. And maybe then after a while Jon gets resurrected, or maybe comes out of his coma after Melisandre tries to resurrect him. And I wanted a good chunk of season 6 to be in the northern storyline to be Sansa centric, because she barely did anything throughout the entire series besides get brutalized and fucked with.
That would have been incredible. That would have been a much better story had it just been like Sansa arrives at the wall, and Davos is there and Brienne is there, and then they kind of start advising her and like, well, I've got nothing to do. Like, I guess let's take this let's take the north. And then it would explain it better. Like Jon becoming a warmonger and wanting to take Ramsay Bolton out is kind of, I mean, I guess they needed Rickon back to do that, but, it made more sense if it was Sansa, because Jon was so focused on the White Walkers, So if you have Sansa do that, go to the wall, get wildlings, get forces, rally the North, that would have been a much better plot.
And there had to have been a reason for her to go through all the bullshit she went through throughout all the other seasons. Being fucked with by Cersei, being moved around like a chess piece on the board by Littlefinger, the insanity she had to go through with Joffrey, and then later her Aunt Lysa. And it's just, there had to have been a purpose and a reason for all of that to have happened, and it kind of doesn't really go anywhere. We just get one throwaway line in season 8 where she goes, I think it was season 8 or season 7, where she references things she's learned from Cersei, and it just doesn't really...
Yeah, things she learned from Cersei off screen, yeah. Yeah.
But Preston, I'm sorry, we went on for way too long about all this.
No
Thank you.
worries.
Thank you so much for joining us. Guys, thank you for joining us as well. And as always, we'll see you next time. Have a good one.